Hi, I'm Christine North. I work for SSE, which is a leading energy provider in the UK. We manage generation fleet as well as networks and associated businesses. FTSE 100 company, around 10,000 employees, headquartered in Perth. So I'm Director of Group Efficiencies and Innovation for SSE, which is a corporate team responsible for the deployment of continuous improvement across the organisation, the adoption of innovation and innovative technologies into the group, and the delivery of efficiencies, cost savings for the organisation. So my current obsession is my new puppy. I am one of the millions of people in the UK who got a lockdown puppy, a chocolate puppy called Maya. He's 4 months old now, so getting into that slightly irritating phase of puppydom, but I've thoroughly enjoyed spending a bit of time at home with a pup. So I guess my journey with continuous improvement started. My first job was at GE, which had a very structured, a very well-established Six Sigma program, process re-engineering, master black belts, green belts, all of the terminology I became very familiar with that first role. I then moved into BT, and they were deploying through the McKinsey model, sort of 12-week waves of continuous improvement for the operational team. So that's where the term continuous improvement kind of first popped up. I recognised quite a lot of the tools and the techniques and the sort of the philosophy and the principles around it. And then subsequent to that, I've been working more heavily on lean deployment, on deploying some of the toolkit from lean. I'm at the stage in my career now where it's all in a big pile of tools and techniques, different badges, different labels, but essentially all geared towards optimising processes for the organisation and engaging staff in continuous improvement. It means getting involved. It means working together in teams, across value streams, so not just in functional teams, across different parts of an organisation that provide inputs or use outputs from a process. It means having a bit of fun with process improvement. It means doing it in a high energy way, and focusing on the strategic priorities of the organisation. So ensuring that the improvement activities and projects that get spun up are all focusing people's time and attention on those things that matter most to customers. I think my experience at GE was very structured, very consistent methodology applied across all of the business units, and focused a lot of attention on leadership for continuous improvement. So not just the technical skills of how to run the workshops or analyse the processes, but how to bring teams of people together around a problem and walk them through a journey to solve that problem. I think when I left GE, the transition from being in a very structured, very well-established program to an organisation that wanted to do it but didn't have any of that infrastructure in place was a really big shock for me, because I think GE had been 10 years in, and when I moved across to BT it was relatively new, so understanding all of the building blocks, all of the foundations in terms of behaviours, in terms of management systems, reward frameworks, as well as the training, which is kind of the natural first thing to go to, and really kind of having to work on engaging the senior leadership team in the ambition and the vision for what we're trying to do, and not just in the practicalities of and the timings of deployment. I think that taught me a huge amount about what continuous improvement is and what it takes to transform an organisation using these tools and techniques. When I left BT and I joined SSE about 5 years ago, similar situation but entirely different industry. So I'd kind of learnt my trade in transactional high volume environments, and I've moved into a company that builds wind farms, that manages assets, physical distribution and transmission assets out in the field, and adapting the methods and the language and the sort of sequencing of things for a new environment has really shored up my confidence that it works anywhere. It's totally transferable, and I think that's you say that you hear that in the training material, but when you're actually using it day to day, it has the same effect on teams regardless what process they're operating, which I think is really powerful. So I think it means focusing on customers. It means focusing on understanding the system, the network of processes that create value for your customers, and kind of getting a really detailed understanding, under the bonnet understanding of how those processes generate value and who does what, and how information flows from start to finish. I think for me, it's all a focus on removing waste, on making things easier for the people that are operating the processes, and making them better in terms of quality of output for customers. So I think the world of data has transformed dramatically in my career, and I am at the edge of keeping up with it, I would say. I think process mining, the ability to use computers to understand what process is telling you rather than using groups of people, I think that adds an incredibly powerful dimension to the diagnostics of what's happening in a particular area of a business or a value stream. I think it's still important to couple that with the wisdom of the organisation, with how people are interacting with the process, what they're experiencing, what they're hearing from customers. But the ability to not just sample, 100 units or 50 calls, but to take every transaction that's ever been through this process for the last 2 years and be able to visualise it, be able to break it down into different segments to understand how the performance varies between those segments, and then to use that as a springboard for investigating root cause. It's accelerated the sort of the analyse phase of the work that we do tremendously, from a couple of months down to a couple of weeks at most. So I think that's really important, and enables you to take much bigger samples, much bigger data sets, which from a confidence point of view gives you much more certainty about the conclusions that you're drawing. I think on top of that, the automation and the extent to which processes are a hybrid of what people do and what machines do has made the sort of understanding of process flow much more complicated, because it isn't just one person passing work to another and a physical item that you can watch move through a transaction. It moves from physical to virtual and back again, and between machines processing and people processing. So I think that getting to the heart of what's going wrong and what the root causes are for issues has become more complicated as a result. But I also think that a lot of the errors, the root causes for issues which were, human nature, which were, repeatability issues or, poor training, they've all been eradicated where processes are fully automated. So there's been a huge step forward in that space, I think. So I think first up is how often people talk about customers and what they want and how they feel, and the extent to which their activities are in response to changing customer demands. I think hearing people talk about value streams, talk about the flow of work between business units or functional areas as a value stream, as an entity in its own right that creates something of value for customers. I certainly look out for that. Physically, the visual cues for an organisation that has a system of continuous improvement are very obvious. You walk in and there are, visual management techniques. People are, gathering in groups to solve problems. You have everybody in the organisation has clarity about how they're performing, what needs to change, and who's doing what currently to address the priority problems. I think the enthusiasm for improvement in an organisation that has a strong system of continuous improvement is very tangible. People are excited about it. They're enthused by the idea of fixing something. Some organisations or some teams that I've worked with are kind of still hiding problems from the senior managers. They don't want to expose them because that makes them look bad. So I look out for any signals that problems are being diminished or hidden as the communications go up the chain, because I think that's a very unhealthy behaviour in an organisation that genuinely wants to strive for continuous improvement. I grab it with both hands. It makes work so much more fun if you're fixing stuff instead of just, walking past broken stuff or having to deal with the consequences of inefficient processes or of teams that are, disjointed or imbalanced. So I've always loved fixing stuff, getting to the root of what's going on, take things apart, put them back together. And I think continuous improvement, a structured deployment of continuous improvement gives organisations a roadmap and a toolkit to help everybody engage in identifying and solving problems for the organisation, and having process discipline, having a stable operating rhythm, and having everybody understanding the working the work instructions and the standard operating procedures, and having performance measures that reflect what customers need from you. It makes work more harmonious. It makes it a nicer place to spend time, because everything's where it should be and everything's working as it should be. And problems are dealt with as they pop up, so things don't fester and mutate and become a drama. So my advice to anybody who's sort of, in two minds would be grab it, because it makes a huge difference to the way people feel about their work and the environment they work in, and how pleasant or frustrating that is. And ultimately, in terms of business performance, the race to keep up on productivity is never gonna loosen. And I think organisations that want to avoid investing millions of pounds in just technology solutions to drive productivity, they need to have a way to harness the brain power and the discretionary effort of a large number of people. And I think systems of improvement are brilliant at that.